Humans, those ruthless bipedal apes from Earth. The only species cold-blooded enough to rescue a starving Ferengi child from his own people's brutality. Jason Williams strode through the grimy streets of Ferenginar's capital, the stench of greed and desperation filling his nostrils. Gleaming skyscrapers full of Ferengi businessmen wheeling and dealing loomed overhead, casting long shadows. He had just closed a lucrative trade agreement in this cutthroat society, built on pure, unchecked capitalism, but his uneasy satisfaction evaporated as he turned a corner and saw a mob of snarling Ferengi adults surrounding a small, trembling figure. A Ferengi child, no more than 6 Earth years old, cowered in the street. Tears streamed down his leathery face. An imposing Ferengi merchant jabbed a clawed finger at the boy, shouting in rage about stolen bread. The watching crowd jeered and bellowed, demanding harsh punishment. On Ferenginar, even petty thieves faced mutilation, and this child would receive no mercy. Jason clenched his fists, a sick feeling rising in his gut. His Ferengi guide grabbed his arm, shaking his head in warning. "Stay out of it, human. Their laws, their business. We have a shipment to collect." Jason ground his teeth, watching the merchant raise a metal rod, ready to shatter the whimpering child's thin arm. Every primal instinct in him screamed to intervene. But he was just one human on an alien world. If he interfered, he risked his trade deal, his livelihood, and possibly his life. The Ferengi didn't tolerate meddling. Sweat stung his eyes as he faced a split-second decision that would change everything. Let the kid suffer, or unleash human fury on Ferenginar. Jason had to make a choice, and the fate of one small alien child hung in the balance. Jason's heart pounded as he watched the merchant raise the metal rod, poised to shatter the child's arm. He couldn't stand by and let this brutality unfold. Stepping forward, he held up a hand. "Wait. I'll pay for what he stole. How much for the bread?" The merchant paused, his small eyes narrowing. 5 strips of latinum, but it's not about the money. The little thief needs to learn a lesson." Jason dug into his pocket and produced the latinum, tossing it at the merchant's feet. "There, I've paid his debt. The matter is settled." Grumbling, the merchant stooped to collect the strips, but the crowd's angry muttering only grew louder. They wanted to see blood, not mercy. Jason's Ferengi guide hissed in his ear, "You're making a mistake. This isn't how things work here." Jason ignored him, focusing on the trembling child. "What's your name, kid?" "Theros," the boy whispered, his eyes wide with fear. The merchant finished counting the latinum and fixed Jason with a venomous glare. "You may have bought the bread, human, but the brat still deserves punishment. On Ferenginar, we don't let thieves off so easily." The crowd pressed closer, their shouts growing more insistent. Jason knew he had to act fast. He couldn't leave Theros to face mob justice. "I'll take him to the authorities myself. Let them handle it according to your laws." His guide grabbed his arm, fingers digging in painfully. "Are you insane? We have a deal to close. You're putting everything at risk for some worthless urchin." Jason shook him off, his jaw clenched. "I'm not going to stand by and watch a child get maimed over a loaf of bread. We're settling this the right way." He reached for Theros, gently helping him to his feet. The boy flinched at his touch but didn't pull away. The merchant sneered but stepped aside as Jason led Theros through the parting crowd. As they walked away, the Ferengi businessman caught up to Jason, his face twisted with rage. "You just cost us the deal of a lifetime, human. No one on Ferenginar will work with us now. Your foolish compassion has ruined everything." Jason met his furious gaze unflinchingly. "I won't apologize for doing the right thing. Find a new business partner if you don't like it." He tightened his grip on Tharos's hand, leading him towards the towering government building in the distance. The child's fate still hung in the balance, but at least now he had a fighting chance at a fair trial. Jason knew his actions had consequences, but he refused to sacrifice his humanity on the altar of profit. Not here, not anywhere. He would face whatever came next with a clear conscience. Jason walked briskly, Tharos's small hand clutched tightly in his own as they wove through the crowded Ferengi streets. The boy's breathing was ragged, his eyes darting nervously at the passers-by. Jason glanced down, noting the child's sunken cheeks and tattered clothes. "Hey, kid, you gonna be all right?" Tharos swallowed hard, his voice barely audible over the din of the marketplace. I think so. Thank you for helping me back there. No one's ever stood up for me like that before." Jason's heart clenched. "What about your parents? Won't they be worried about you?" The boy's shoulders slumped and he shook his head. "I don't have any parents. They died when I was just a baby. I've been on my own ever since." Jason stopped in his tracks, turning to face Tharos fully. "Wait, you're an orphan? How have you been surviving out here?" Tharos shuffled his feet, avoiding Jason's gaze. "I do what I have to. Steal food when I'm hungry, find shelter where I can. It's not easy, but it's the only way." "What about orphanages or foster care? Surely there's some kind of system in place for kids like you." A bitter laugh escaped Tharos' lips, sounding far too cynical for a child so young. "Not on Ferenginar. Here, orphans are just a drain on profits. No one wants to take in a mouth they can't make money off of. We're left to fend for ourselves or get exploited by gangs and slavers." Jason ran a hand over his face, trying to process the harsh realities of Ferengi society. He couldn't just leave Tharos to the mercy of the streets. "Listen, kid, I can't let you go back to that life. Not after what I just saw. You're coming with me, at least until I can figure out a better solution." Tharos' eyes widened, a mix of hope and disbelief shining in their depths. "You mean it? You're not going to turn me over to the authorities?" "Not a chance. But I do need to find out more about your legal situation. I have a contact here, a Ferengi lawyer named Quark. He might be able to shed some light on your rights and the consequences you could face for the theft." The boy nodded solemnly, his grip tightening on Jason's hand. "I understand. Thank you, Jason, for everything." Jason managed to smile despite the weight of responsibility settling on his shoulders. "Don't mention it, kid. Now let's get you somewhere safe and make that call to Quark. We've got a lot to figure out." As they set off once more, Jason's mind raced with questions and concerns. He knew he was wading into uncharted territory, but he couldn't turn his back on Tharos. Not now. Not ever. He would do whatever it took to protect this child and give him a chance at a better life, even if it meant taking on the entire Ferengi system himself. Jason's heart sank as Quark's holographic face delivered the grim news. The Ferengi lawyer shook his head, his expression a mix of pity and resignation. "I'm sorry, Jason, but orphans have virtually no rights under Ferengi law. The boy would be seen as a criminal, regardless of his age or circumstances. He'd be facing indentured servitude at best, or a labor camp sentence at worst. There's no real justice for someone like him here." Jason pinched the bridge of his nose, his anger rising. "That's unacceptable, Quark. I can't let that happen to Tharos. He's just a kid trying to survive in a system that's completely stacked against him." Quark spread his hands in a gesture of helplessness. "I understand your frustration, but you have to realize that you're dealing with a fundamentally different society here. Ferenginar runs on profit, not compassion. If you try to fight this, you'll be going up against deeply entrenched cultural norms and powerful business interests." Jason set his jaw, his decision already made. "Then I'll just have to get Tharos out of their reach. I'm taking him back to my ship. He'll be safe there while I figure out my next move." Quark's eyes widened in surprise. "You're really willing to go that far for a Ferengi child you just met? You're risking a lot, Jason. Your business, your reputation, maybe even your own freedom if the authorities come after you." "I'm aware of the risks, but I can't turn my back on him. Not after everything he's been through. I'll deal with the consequences as they come." Quark sighed, but there was a glimmer of respect in his eyes. "You're a rare breed, Jason. Not many humans would stick their necks out like this. I'll do what I can to help from my end, but be careful. You're treading in dangerous waters." With a grateful nod, Jason ended the call and turned to Tharos, who had been watching the exchange with a mix of fear and hope. "All right, kid. Change of plans. We're getting you out of here." The journey back to the Odyssey was tense, with Jason constantly looking over his shoulder for any signs of pursuit. But they managed to reach the docking bay without incident, and soon the airlock was hissing shut behind them as they stepped onto the ship's gleaming deck. Tharos gazed around in wonder, his eyes wide as he took in the sleek corridors and blinking consoles. "Is this really your ship? It's amazing." Jason couldn't help but smile at the child's enthusiasm. "She's called the Odyssey, and she's been my home for a long time. Come on, let's introduce you to the crew." As they made their way to the bridge, Jason could sense the curious stares and murmurs from his crew. He knew they would have questions about their unexpected guest. The door slid open to reveal Max, Jason's burly first mate hunched over a navigational display. He looked up as they entered, his eyebrows rising in surprise at the sight of Tharos. "Jason, what's going on? Who's the kid?" Jason placed a reassuring hand on Tharos's shoulder. "This is Tharos. He's going to be staying with us for a while. It's a long story, but right now he needs our help and protection." Max frowned, his gaze assessing the young Ferengi. "Protection? What kind of trouble are you in, son?" Tharos shifted nervously, but Jason spoke up before he could answer. "The kind that no child should ever have to face. I'll explain everything later, but for now, I need you to trust me on this, Max." The first mate studied Jason for a long moment, then nodded slowly. "All right, you know I've always got your back. We'll make sure the kid's safe here." Just then, Sarek, the Vulcan medic, emerged from the corridor. He paused, taking in the scene with a raised eyebrow. "Captain, I see we have a new passenger. May I inquire as to the nature of his presence on our ship?" Jason sighed, running a hand through his hair. "It's a bit complicated, Sarek. Tharos is an orphan from Ferenginar. He was in a bad situation down there, and I couldn't leave him to face their brutal justice system. I'm giving him sanctuary here until I can figure out a more permanent solution." Sarek inclined his head, his expression unreadable. "I see. While I understand your compassionate impulse, Captain, I must point out the potential risks and logistical challenges of harboring a juvenile Ferengi on a working vessel." Tharos hung his head, shame and fear radiating from his small frame, but Jason only tightened his grip on the boy's shoulder. "I know it won't be easy, Sarek, but I also know that this crew has faced far greater challenges before. We'll find a way to make it work. Tharos deserves a chance at a better life, and I intend to give it to him." Sarek considered this for a moment, then nodded solemnly. "Very well, Captain. I will defer to your judgment in this matter. If there is any way I can assist in ensuring the child's well-being and integration into the crew, please let me know." Max clapped his hands together, breaking the tension. "Well, I guess that settles it. Welcome aboard, Tharos. Let's get you settled in and introduce you to the rest of the crew. They might be a bit surprised at first, but they're good people. They'll come around once they get to know you." As Max led Tharos away, chattering about finding him some quarters and a decent meal, Jason exchanged a look with Sarek. They both knew the path ahead wouldn't be smooth sailing. Taking responsibility for a traumatized Ferengi child was no small thing, especially with the looming threat of repercussions from Ferenginar. But Jason also saw something else in Sarek's eyes, hidden beneath that Vulcan stoicism. It was the same thing he felt in his own heart, a fierce determination to protect the innocent and stand up for what was right, no matter the cost. The crew of the Odyssey gathered on the bridge, their faces etched with concern as they discussed Tharos's situation. Max leaned against a console, his arms crossed. "We can't just keep the kid here indefinitely, Jason. Sooner or later, the Ferengi are going to come looking for him." Sarek nodded, his expression pensive. "I concur with Mr. Max's assessment. While I admire your compassion, Captain, we must consider the long-term ramifications of our actions." Jason paced the length of the bridge, his mind racing. He knew his crew was right, but he couldn't bring himself to abandon Tharos to the cruel fate that awaited him on Ferenginar. "I understand your concerns, but I'm not giving up on this kid. There has to be a way to—" A sudden alarm blared through the ship, cutting him off mid-sentence. Sarek quickly checked the readout on his console. "Captain, we're receiving a distress call from a nearby Ferengi trade ship. They report being under attack by Orion pirates. Max grimaced. Damn Orions, they're nothing but trouble. Slavers and thieves, the lot of them. Jason's mind raced as he considered the implications. The Orion Syndicate was notorious for their ruthless tactics and involvement in the galactic slave trade. If they were targeting a Ferengi vessel, it could only mean they were after valuable cargo or looking to capture prisoners for sale. Suddenly, an idea struck him. He turned to Tharos, who had been listening to the exchange with wide, frightened eyes. "Tharos, you know the Ferengi language and customs better than any of us. I think you might be able to help us communicate with the crew of that ship and negotiate a peaceful resolution." Tharos blinked in surprise, his small frame straightening with a newfound sense of purpose. I can try, Jason. I want to help if I can." Jason nodded, a plan already forming in his mind. "All right, here's what we're going to do. We'll respond to the distress call and offer our assistance. Tharos, you'll come with me as a translator and negotiator. If we can help the Ferengi fend off these pirates, it might go a long way towards showing them that you're not just a liability but a valuable asset." Max frowned, clearly uncertain about bringing a child into a potentially dangerous situation. "Are you sure about this, Jason? The kid's been through enough already." Jason met his first mate's gaze, his expression resolute. "I wouldn't suggest it if I didn't think Tharos could handle it. This is a chance for him to prove his worth, and maybe even change some minds about Ferengi orphans. We'll keep him safe, Max, I promise." With the decision made, the Odyssey crew sprang into action. They quickly plotted a course towards the distressed Ferengi ship, preparing for the confrontation ahead. As they dropped out of warp at the coordinates, the scene that greeted them was one of chaos and destruction. The Ferengi vessel, a bulky transport ship, listed heavily to one side, its hull punctured by scorch marks and gaping holes. A sleek Orion raider loomed nearby, its forward cannons still smoking from the barrage. Jason gripped the armrests of his chair, his jaw clenched. "Looks like we got here just in time. Max, hail the Ferengi ship. Let's see if we can get them talking." The view screen flickered to life, revealing the haggard face of a Ferengi captain. His eyes were wide with fear and desperation. "Human ship, please. We need assistance. The Orions are trying to board us, and our weapons are failing. They'll kill us all and take our cargo." Jason leaned forward, his voice calm and reassuring. "This is Captain Jason Archer of the Earthship Odyssey. We're here to help, but we need you to work with us. I have a Ferengi translator on board who can facilitate communication between our crews." The captain's gaze shifted to Tharos, who stood nervously at Jason's side. Recognition and confusion flashed across his face. "The boy from the marketplace. What is he doing on your ship?" Tharos stepped forward, his small voice steady as he addressed the captain in fluent Ferengi. "I am here to help, Captain. The Odyssey crew has shown me kindness and offered me sanctuary. Please, let us assist you in fighting off these pirates. We have the means to defend your ship and your crew." The Ferengi captain hesitated, his eyes darting between Tharos and the looming Orion vessel. Finally, he nodded. "Very well. We will accept your aid, Earther, but know that I am placing a great deal of trust in you and the boy. Do not make me regret this decision." Jason smiled grimly. "Understood, Captain. Now let's show these Orions what happens when they mess with the wrong ships." As the crew of the Odyssey prepared to engage the pirate vessel, Tharos stood tall at Jason's side, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. For the first time in his young life, he felt a sense of purpose and belonging. He would do whatever it took to prove his worth and repay the kindness Jason and his crew had shown him. The battle was about to begin, and the fate of the Ferengi ship hung in the balance, but with Tharos's knowledge and the combined strength of the two crews, they just might stand a chance against the ruthless Orion pirates. The Odyssey's weapons erupted with searing energy beams, slicing into the Orion pirate vessel's shields. The Ferengi trade ship added its own barrage, pummeling the raider with a hail of plasma bolts. The pirate ship shuddered under the onslaught, but returned fire, its disruptor cannons seeking weak points in the Odyssey's defenses. On the bridge, Sarek's fingers danced across the tactical console, his Vulcan composure unshaken by the chaos of battle. He coordinated the Odyssey's attacks with precision, while simultaneously monitoring the ship's systems and the crew's vital signs. "Shields at 72%, he reported calmly. Minor damage to the starboard nacelle, but holding steady. In the transporter room, Jason and Max prepared to lead a boarding party onto the pirate vessel. They checked their phasers and adjusted their combat gear, their faces grim with determination. "Ready to show these Orions what happens when they mess with the wrong crew?" Max asked, a fierce grin spreading across his face. Jason nodded, his eyes hard as steel. "Let's do this. We'll disable their weapons and engines, then round up any survivors for questioning. And Max, watch your back over there." As the boarding party materialized on the Orion ship, chaos erupted around them. Pirate crew members swarmed the corridors, their disruptors spitting deadly green bolts. Jason and Max took cover behind a bulkhead, returning fire with their phasers set to stun. "We need to find the weapons control room," Jason shouted over the din of battle. "Tharos, any idea where that might be?" But Tharos was nowhere to be seen. In the confusion of the firefight, the young Ferengi had slipped away, his small form vanishing into the shadows of the pirate ship. Jason cursed under his breath, fear and anger warring in his chest. "Damn it, where did he go? We have to find him before—" Just then his combadge chirped. "Jason, it's Tharos," came the whispered voice. "I'm in the ventilation system, heading towards the bridge. I think I can gather some intel on their numbers and tactics." Jason's heart clenched with a mixture of pride and terror. "Tharos, no, it's too dangerous. Get back to the boarding party now." But the channel had already gone silent. Tharos was on his own, deep in the heart of the enemy ship. As Jason and Max fought their way through the pirate vessel, stunning Orions left and right, Tharos crawled through the narrow ventilation shafts, his Ferengi ears attuned to every sound. He heard the pirate crew shouting orders and status reports, piecing together a mental map of their numbers and positions. Finally, he reached a grate overlooking the bridge. Peering through the slats, Tharos saw a massive Orion male barking commands at his crew. The Orion's skin was a deep green, his face crisscrossed with scars that spoke of a lifetime of violence. "Crux," one of the pirates called out. "The Earther ship is proving more resilient than we anticipated. We're losing shields fast." The Orion leader, Crux, slammed his fist on the console. "Reroute all power to weapons. We'll destroy them before they have a chance to—" Tharos tapped his combadge, his voice an urgent whisper. "Jason, Max, the pirate leader is on the bridge, and they're diverting power to weapons. If you take out their shield generator, they'll be vulnerable." On the other end of the line, Jason's voice crackled with relief and determination. "Good work, Tharos. Now get yourself to safety. We'll handle the rest." With Tharos's intel, the tide of battle quickly turned. Jason and Max stormed the bridge, stunning the pirate crew and capturing Crux. The Odyssey and the Ferengi ship concentrated their fire on the pirate vessel's shield generator, causing it to explode in a brilliant flash of plasma. As the smoke cleared, Jason found Tharos in the corridor outside the bridge, his small form shaking with a mixture of fear and exhilaration. He knelt down and pulled the young Ferengi into a fierce hug. "Don't ever scare me like that again," he whispered, his voice rough with emotion. "But I'm proud of you, Tharos. You were incredibly brave today." The Ferengi captain, his face bruised but alight with triumph, approached Jason and Tharos. He clasped the boy's shoulder, his eyes shining with gratitude. "You have proven yourself a true hero today, young Tharos. Your courage and resourcefulness have saved not only my ship and crew, but countless others who might have fallen victim to these pirates." He turned to Jason, his expression somber. "Captain Archer, I owe you and your crew a great debt. You have shown me that there is more to life than profit and self-interest. If there is anything I can do to repay your kindness, name it." Jason smiled, his arm still wrapped around Tharos's shoulders. "Actually, Captain, there is one thing. I think it's time we had a talk about the treatment of orphans on Ferenginar, and I believe Tharos here might just be the catalyst for change that your society needs." The Ferengi captain and Jason stood on the bridge of the Odyssey. the weight of the recent battle heavy on their shoulders. They discussed the implications of the Orion attack and the potential fallout for both their crews. Jason ran a hand through his hair, the stress of the situation evident in the lines of his face. Suddenly an alarm blared through the ship. Sarek's voice came over the intercom, his usually calm tone tinged with urgency. "Captain, there has been a breach in the brig. The Orion prisoner, Crux, has escaped." Jason's eyes widened, his heart pounding in his chest. "Where is he now?" There was a brief pause before Sarek replied, "Internal sensors indicate he is heading towards the engine room." Max cursed under his breath. "He's going to try to sabotage the ship. We need to stop him before—" The first mate's words were cut off by Tharos's voice crackling through the comm system. "Jason, Max, I've found Crux. He's trying to get into the engine room, but I think I can lure him away." Jason's blood ran cold at the thought of Tharos facing the dangerous Orion alone. "Tharos, no, stay where you are. We're on our way." But the young Ferengi's voice was determined. "There's no time. I know I can do this. Trust me." With that, the communication cut off, leaving Jason and Max to exchange a worried glance. The Ferengi captain, seeing the concern on their faces, stepped forward. "My security team and I will assist you in apprehending the Orion. We cannot let him bring further harm to our crews." Jason nodded grimly, his hand already on his phaser. "Let's go!" They raced through the corridors of the Odyssey, their footsteps echoing off the metal walls. As they approached the cargo bay, they heard the sound of a scuffle inside. Jason's heart leapt into his throat as he thought of Tharos facing Crux alone. The door to the cargo bay slid open, revealing a scene of chaos. Crates were overturned, their contents spilling across the floor. In the center of the room, Crux stood with his back to the door, his attention focused on something in front of him. "Hey, it's over, Crux," Jason called out, his phaser trained on the Orion's broad back. "Step away from the boy and surrender." Crux turned slowly, his eyes blazing with hatred. In front of him, Tharos stood with his arms outstretched, blocking the Orion's path. The young Ferengi's face was bruised, but his expression was one of determination. "You think you've won, Earther?" Crux spat, his gaze shifting between Jason and the Ferengi captain. "You have no idea what the Ferengi are capable of, the things they do to their slaves, to people like me." The Ferengi captain's eyes widened in surprise. "You were a slave?" Crux let out a bitter laugh. "I was. I was owned by a wealthy Ferengi merchant who treated me like an animal. He beat me, starved me, and worked me until I couldn't stand. And when I finally escaped, I swore I would make all Ferengi pay for what they did to me." Jason's grip tightened on his phaser, his heart aching for the pain and suffering Crux had endured. "What happened to you was wrong, Crux. No one should have to go through that. But hurting others, killing innocent people, that's not the answer." Crux's face twisted with rage. "Innocent? The Ferengi are never innocent. They're all the same, driven by greed and cruelty." Tharos stepped forward, his small voice ringing out in the cargo bay. "That's not true. I'm Ferengi, and I'm not like that. Captain Archer and his crew have shown me that there's more to life than profit. They've given me a chance to be something better." The Orion's gaze fell on Tharos, a flicker of doubt crossing his face. "You're just a child. You don't understand the way the world works." "I understand enough to know that hurting others won't make the pain go away," Tharos replied, his voice steady. "It'll only create more suffering, more people like you, consumed by anger and hate." Crux's shoulders slumped, the fight draining out of him. He looked at Tharos, then at Jason and the Ferengi captain. I don't know how to be anything else. This is all I've ever known." Jason lowered his phaser, stepping forward cautiously. "It's never too late to change, Crux. You have a choice. You can let your past define you, or you can choose to be something more, something better." Crux closed his eyes, a single tear sliding down his green cheek. "I'm tired of fighting, tired of the anger and the pain. I just want it to end." The Ferengi captain approached Crux, his expression one of compassion. "I cannot undo the wrongs that have been done to you, but I can offer you a chance at a new beginning. A chance to help us make Ferengi society a better place for all. Crux looked at the captain, a glimmer of hope in his eyes. You would do that, after everything I've done? The captain placed a hand on Crux's shoulder. Everyone deserves a second chance, even you. As the cargo bay doors opened, Jason watched as the Ferengi captain led Crux away, a sense of hope and possibility hanging in the air. He turned to Tharos, pulling the young Ferengi into a tight hug. You were incredibly brave today, Tharos. You showed compassion and understanding, even in the face of danger. I'm so proud of you. Tharos smiled, his eyes shining with tears. I learned it from you, Jason. You and your crew have shown me what it means to be a good person, to stand up for what's right, no matter what. Jason ruffled Tharos's hair affectionately. And you, my young friend, have taught us the power of second chances, of the potential for change and growth, even in the darkest of circumstances. As they walked out of the cargo bay, Jason's mind was already racing with the possibilities that lay ahead. With Tharos by his side and the support of the Ferengi captain, they had a chance to make a real difference, to change the lives of orphans like Tharos and to build a better future for all. It wouldn't be easy, but Jason knew that together they could face any challenge that lay ahead. And with the courage and compassion of his crew and the unwavering spirit of one brave little Ferengi, anything was possible. Tharos stepped forward, his small frame trembling as he faced the towering Orion. Crux's story hung in the air, the pain and anger in his voice still echoing in the cargo bay. The young Ferengi took a deep breath, his eyes meeting Crux's with a mixture of compassion and determination. I understand your pain, Tharos said, his voice steady despite his nerves. The cruelty you endured, the injustice you faced, it's not right. No one should have to go through that. Crux's eyes widened, surprise flickering across his green features. He had not expected understanding from a Ferengi, least of all a child. Tharos continued, but hurting others, enslaving them, it won't make things better, it won't erase what happened to you, it only creates more suffering. The Orion's fists clenched, his jaw tightening. What do you know of suffering, boy? You're just a child, a Ferengi. Your kind are the ones who inflict pain, not endure it. Tharos shook his head, a sad smile on his face. I'm an orphan. I've known hunger, fear, and loneliness. I thought I had to steal to survive, that the world was cruel and unforgiving. But then, I met Jason and his crew. He gestured to the humans and the Vulcan standing behind him, their faces etched with concern and compassion. They showed me kindness even though I'm Ferengi. They taught me that there's more to life than greed and selfishness, that even in the darkest times there's hope for a better future. Crux's stance faltered, his eyes darting between Tharos and the Odyssey crew. The child's words were simple, but they carried a weight that the hardened Orion could not ignore. Jason stepped forward, his hand outstretched in a gesture of peace. Tharos is right, Crux, you have a choice. You can continue down this path of violence and revenge, or you can choose to be better than those who hurt you. The Orion's eyes met Jason's, uncertainty and fear swirling in their depths. I don't know how. I've been fighting for so long. I don't know anything else. It's never too late to change, Jason said, his voice gentle but firm. Surrender and I promise you'll receive a fair trial. We'll advocate for your case and work towards rehabilitation. You have a chance to make things right, to find a purpose beyond pain and anger. Crux's shoulders slumped, the fight draining from his body. He looked at Tharos, the young Ferengi who had shown him more compassion than he had ever known, and then at Jason, the human who offered him a path to redemption. With a shuddering breath, Crux nodded, I surrender. As Mac stepped forward to secure the Orion, Tharos felt a hand on his shoulder. He looked up to see Jason smiling down at him, pride shining in his eyes. You did well, Tharos. Your words, your compassion, they made a difference today. You should be proud. The young Ferengi smiled, a warmth spreading through his chest. For the first time in his life, he felt like he belonged, like he had a purpose beyond mere survival. As the crew led Crux out of the cargo bay, Tharos knew that the road ahead would not be easy. There were still challenges to face, wrongs to right, and a long way to go before Ferengi society could truly change. But with the Odyssey crew by his side, and the power of compassion and understanding in his heart, Tharos knew that anything was possible. As the Odyssey and the Ferengi vessel docked on Ferenginar, Jason and the Ferengi captain wasted no time in seeking an audience with the Ferengi Commerce Authority. Tharos, his wounds tended to by Sarek, stood alongside them, his heart pounding with a mixture of anticipation and fear. The grand halls of the FCA headquarters were a stark contrast to the dingy streets Tharos had called home for so long. Golden statues of famous Ferengi businessmen lined the walls, their acquisitive grins seeming to mock the young orphan. The trio was ushered into a lavish conference room where a panel of FCA officials awaited them. The Ferengi captain spoke first, recounting the harrowing battle against the Orion pirates and the crucial role Tharos had played in their victory. Jason then stepped forward, his voice steady and impassioned as he described the plight of Ferenginar's orphans. Esteemed members of the FCA, I come before you today not just as a Starfleet officer, but as a concerned individual who has witnessed firsthand the struggles of Ferenginar's most vulnerable citizens, Jason began, his gaze sweeping across the room. Children like Tharos are left to fend for themselves, forced to resort to theft and deception just to survive. But it doesn't have to be this way. Quark, the lawyer, chimed in, his voice smooth and persuasive. The FCA has always prided itself on its ability to adapt and seize new opportunities. By investing in the welfare and education of our orphans, we can create a new generation of skilled workers and entrepreneurs, boosting our economy and securing Ferenginar's future prosperity. The FCA officials murmured among themselves, their eyes flickering between Tharos and the Ferengi captain. The child held his breath, his small hands clenched at his sides. Finally, the head of the FCA, a wizened Ferengi with a calculating gaze, spoke. Your arguments are compelling, and the FCA recognizes the potential benefits of such a program. The heroic actions of young Tharos and the Odyssey crew have not gone unnoticed, and we see an opportunity to turn this positive publicity to our advantage, the official declared, his lips curling into a smirk. We will establish a pilot program for orphan care and education, with Tharos as one of its first beneficiaries. The FCA will provide funding and oversight, but we will need the support of influential businessmen to ensure its success. The Ferengi captain stepped forward, his chest puffed with pride. I would be honored to sponsor Tharos's education and mentor him in the ways of Ferengi business. The boy has shown remarkable potential, and I believe he could be a valuable asset to my company in the future. Tharos looked up at the captain, his eyes wide with surprise and gratitude. He had never dared to dream of such an opportunity, of a life beyond the streets and the constant struggle for survival. As the meeting adjourned, and the trio made their way back to the Odyssey, Jason placed a hand on Tharos's shoulder. You did it, kid. You've opened the door to a better future, not just for yourself, but for countless other orphans on Ferenginar. Tharos smiled, a genuine, hopeful smile that lit up his entire face. I couldn't have done it without you, Jason. You and your crew showed me that there's more to life than profit and self-interest. You gave me a chance to be something more. The Ferengi captain, overhearing their conversation, nodded in agreement. And now, with the support of the FCA and my mentorship, you'll have the opportunity to become a successful businessman and a leader in your own right. The road ahead won't be easy, but I have faith in you, Tharos. As the Odyssey prepared to depart, Tharos took one last look at the planet he had called home for so long. The streets that had once seemed so harsh and unforgiving now held the promise of change and hope. With a deep breath, he turned to face his new future, ready to embrace the challenges and opportunities that lay ahead. Tharos stood on the bridge of the Odyssey, his heart heavy as he watched the crew prepare for departure. The past few weeks had been a whirlwind of emotions and experiences, from the terror of facing the Orion pirates to the triumph of securing a better future for Ferenginar's orphans. But now, as the ship readied to leave, the young Ferengi found himself at a crossroads. Jason approached Tharos, placing a hand on the child's shoulder. "You've been quiet all morning, kid. What's on your mind?" Tharos looked up at the human, his eyes brimming with tears. "I don't know what to do, Jason. Part of me wants to stay with you and the crew, to keep exploring the galaxy and learning from all of you. But another part of me knows that I have a responsibility to my people, to the other orphans who are still suffering." Jason knelt down, meeting Tharos's gaze. "I understand, Tharos. It's a tough decision and one that only you can make. But I want you to know that whatever you choose, I'll support you." The child nodded, a single tear rolling down his cheek. "You've given me so much, Jason. You showed me that there's more to life than profit and survival. You taught me about compassion, bravery, and selflessness. I'll never forget that." Jason smiled, his own eyes glistening with emotion. "And you've taught us too, Tharos. You've shown us the power of resilience, of hope in the face of adversity. You've made us all better people." Tharos took a deep breath, his small shoulders squaring with determination. "I think I know what I have to do, Jason. I need to stay on Ferenginar to help make sure that the changes we fought for become a reality. I want to be a symbol of hope for the other orphans, to show them that they can have a better life." Jason nodded, pride swelling in his chest. "I think that's a very brave and selfless decision, Tharos, and I want you to know that you'll always have a place on the Odyssey whenever you need it. We'll visit you every time we're in Ferengi space." The two embraced, holding each other tightly as the rest of the crew gathered around to say their goodbyes. Max ruffled Tharos's hair, a gruff smile on his face, while Sarek gave the child a solemn Vulcan salute. The Ferengi captain stepped forward, placing a hand on Tharos's shoulder. "I'm proud of you, my boy," the captain said, his voice thick with emotion. "You have a bright future ahead of you, and I look forward to guiding you on your path to success." As the Odyssey crew boarded the ship, Tharos stood on the spaceport watching as the vessel prepared for takeoff. Tears streamed down his face, the bittersweet mix of sadness and hope filling his heart. He knew he would miss his human friends deeply, but he also knew that he had a purpose, a mission, to make a difference in his world. The ship's engines roared to life, the Odyssey lifting off the ground and ascending into the Ferengi sky. Tharos watched until the vessel disappeared from view, a tiny speck against the vast expanse of space. With a deep breath, he turned to face his new future, ready to embark on the journey that lay ahead. You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel, and for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.